The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and/or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
Hey! A triple feature, 3 films up on the screen. One's a little heavy, one's a little sleek, and one's just caught between. We'll laugh and cry and overanalyze, dig through fleams with wide, wild eyes. Grab some popcorn, take your seat. 3 times the fun, 3 times the treat. Hey, a triple feature. That's what we're here to do. What we're here to do. Buckle up, the lights go down, and we'll watch them all with you.
I mentioned to Jesse when we were doing the plugs for last night's show, we finally got around to doing Legit. We had to combine season 1 and season 2 because he had something to do with his daughter at the top of the month. So he was like, "Hey, let's just do them both at the same time. It's like one season of The West Wing." I'm like, sure. So we did that last night, and we're doing plugs. And I go, and tomorrow, what was going to be Damn You Hollywood for Anaconda, is now going to be a triple feature for Jay Kelly, Train Dreams, and A House of Dynamite. And he was like, "Oh, why? How come you guys aren't doing Anaconda?" And I said, "Because Robert gets 1 pass per year. He held on to one from Barbie for several years.
I forgot that one.
Yeah, he has at least one pass per year. And he used it for Anaconda. I was like, Robert held on to that thing like it's the money in the bank, and then like cashed it out at the December pay-per-view. So no Anaconda, which I wasn't gonna.
So did you see Anaconda yet with your son? Because you were going to go see it with Jonas.
Well, that's the thing. I was actually getting to that. So we saw Marty Supreme instead because Jonas really wanted to see that, and
well, that we could have reviewed. I'd have been happy with that. If I got a showing around me, I'd have happily done that one.
Again, I think I thought I pitched that idea to you, but
I think the issue was there's not a showing around me. Let me double check that. I might feel very foolish in a moment here.
Yeah, I guess this was a lot easier to do than Marty Supreme. Plus, I had put Marty Supreme in a triple feature for a few weeks from now.
Yeah, and monkeying with that was going to be awkward.
Yeah, with Begonia and Hamnet. So anyway,
there is technically a one theater, like once, maybe twice a day showing in reasonable driving distance of me, but okay.
So to get to the end of this story, we saw Marty Supreme instead, which Jonas loved, by the way. Jonas is like, this is like the best movie ever. Like, great. So hint about what's coming in the future. Yeah. And so we did not go see Anaconda. And I told him, I'm just like, so we're probably not going to get, just with your sister's birthday coming up and a bunch of other things that are happening, we're probably not going to get to see Anaconda. And then he was like, "Oh, but I really want to go see Anaconda. Please take me to see Anaconda." And then he was like, "Oh, by the way, when are you reviewing?" The second person to do this to me, the second person to betray me. First was Jason.
Well, you expect it from Jason, so it's not really betrayal.
Second was Jonas.
That's the dagger in the back.
So
your son, the apple of your eye, the fruit of your loins, all of it just stabbed you in the back.
He goes, "When are you reviewing Primate?" "We're not, Jonas. I don't want to go see that movie." And a single tear. This poor boy in the middle of a Denny's, single tear down his cheek as he said to me, "Father," he called me father, through tears in his eyes, "I want to go see Primate. What do you mean you're not going to review it? Wait, please, Father, take me to see Primate." And I was like, "Jonas, I really don't want to see a stupid horror movie where an infected chimpanzee runs around and tears off white people's faces."
Apparently
I don't want to insinuate that if it teared off like Indian faces, I'd have been okay with it. I don't want to see it tear off anyone's face.
Yeah. I'm with you. It looks terrible.
Yeah, so I don't want to go fucking see this, and I don't want to subject you to it. So, like, and there's other stuff. I want to, like, next week we're doing Wake Up Dead Man. I would rather talk about that. I think the first.
I mean, I have a real hard time imagining Wake Up Dead Man is going to be worse than Glass Onion, which you and I thoroughly trashed.
So we have a full slate of stuff to do in January. The first Damn You Hollywood for an in-theater movie will be 28 Days Later, The Boneyard.
Simple.
Whatever. Bone in the Boneyard. That's what I'm calling it. But before that, we have some room to play around with other stuff that needs getting to, like Wake Up Dead Man, Begonia, Marty Supreme, Hamnet. But because I can't say no to my son, I mean, I can, and I often do. But when it comes to stuff like this, I'm like,
When he's asking for a shared experience.
Yeah. So I look at my calendar and I go, what if, because we haven't done this in a while, I think the last time was November of 2024, where we did a marathon. I did War of the Rohirrim, and I can't remember what the other one was. Might have been, what came out in November of last year? That sucked.
I don't remember, but I remember the circumstance of that.
Yeah.
There were like two things in the theater at the same time.
Oh, it was fucking Kraven the Hunter.
Yeah, that was a rough.
I know that because I did both movies on the other guy's podcast. So this year, so it's like, okay, well, we never did like a good, all of our movie marathons were from the comfort of our home. So we'll do an in-theater movie marathon. I will subject myself to fucking Anaconda and Primate in the same day. And then speaks up and goes, well, I don't want to, like, Anaconda's fine, but I don't really want to see Primate. And her thing is not I love my daughter. God bless her. I mean, 15 years young. She says, I don't want to see Primate because I don't like to see monkeys bitten by whatever the hell that thing was bitten by. That makes me sad. Has no care at all for the humans who will be mutilated in this movie. And
of course not. Your daughter is being raised to be a sociopath because that's what modern culture wants out of its drones.
Okay.
To be oblivious to the inevitable exploitation, death, and dismemberment of your fellow man because they exist in a different atomized silo of individualized feed. So therefore, they're not real.
Or she could just like monkeys. Anyway.
No one likes monkeys.
So, with all that said, welcome to Triple Feature. I'm your host, the Mandated Reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. That over there is the host of Damn You Hollywood. He's Robert Winfrey. And tonight, we are talking about a triple feature that sits at a very specific intersection of modern prestige filmmaking. Netflix as patron, literary seriousness as cover, and awards viability as the quiet but ever-present horizon. None of these films were made for the Oscars in the blunt old studio sense, but all three are engineered to be legible to that ecosystem. We're looking at J. Kelly, Train Dreams, and A House of Dynamite. Three projects that tell us about genre trends and more about how Netflix now signals seriousness, authorial intent, restraint, adult subject matter, and a rejection of spectacle as the primary selling point. Train Dreams is
because there is no spectacle on Netflix, and they've started to realize it finally.
Train Dreams is the clearest case study. Adapted from Denis Johnson's novella, it arrives already pre-validated by the literary world. The production choice is natural light, episodic memory rather than plot propulsion, and emphasis on interior over explanation are not accidental. This is a film that understands exactly what kind of adaptation it is supposed to be. Not a great book, now a movie, but a meditation on the American solitude, labor, and impermanence translated into cinematic language that doesn't overinterpret the source. The casting reinforces that intent. Actors chosen for presence and restraint rather than star affection, allowing the film to operate as a mood and a memory rather than a performance showcase. That's the kind of seriousness festivals reward first and award bodies later, if the campaign aligns. Jake Kelly occupies a different lane. Where Train Dreams draws legitimacy from literature, Jake Kelly leans into contemporary realism and character study, films that look modest on the surface but live or die by the tone. These projects often develop less as stories than environments, a social space, a moral pressure cooker, a set of behaviors under observation. Casting here matters not because of prestige alone, but because the film depends on actors who can suggest a life before the first scene and after the last. This is the Netflix strategy at its most calculated. Give directors room to make something small, human, and critically defensible. Let the critics do the early framing work. A House of Dynamite, boom! The most opaque of the three in public discourse, fits Netflix's recent interest in dramas that feel dangerous without being polemical. These are films designed to provoke discussion without committing to easy ideological lanes. Developmentally, this is where Netflix often acts less like a studio and more like a financier with taste. Back the voice, protect the runtime, minimize interference, and trust that ambiguity itself becomes a marketing hook. When these films land, they tend to show up not as Best Picture locks, but as screenplay, acting, or late-breaking critic circle players, the kind of titles that benefit from consensus rather than passion. And that's the through line tonight. All of these films reflect the same underlying wager, that seriousness still has cultural capital, even in a streaming ecosystem built on volume. Netflix isn't chasing mass audiences with these projects. It's chasing validation from critics, festivals, and eventually awards bodies. By positioning itself as the last major patron of adult drama that isn't tethered to IP or algorithmic familiarity. What ties Jake Kelly, Train Dreams, and A House of Dynamite together isn't genre, subject matter, or even style. It's intent. These are films made to be taken seriously first, discovered slowly, and argued about afterward. Whether that translates into Oscar nominations is partly a function of campaigning, but more importantly, it's a test of whether the awards ecosystem still recognizes quiet ambition in an industry that increasingly rewards noise. That's the experiment we're watching tonight. So how much of this were you familiar with before I foisted it upon you?
I watched House of Dynamite of my own volition not too long after it came out. I regretted it. I'm glad we're reviewing it because now my suffering has purpose.
That is what I'm here for, to give you a life purpose.
Sure you are.
And suffering. Mostly your suffering.
Train Dreams, I had heard good things about, so I was going to watch that anyway, and then it showed up on the triple feature, so I was happy to do that. Jay Kelly, I knew nothing about, and then watched it. And, oof.
Any glaring omissions? And I know you struggle with these kinds of questions, and you contemplate them too much when I want you to move swiftly. You tend to, you tend to not love it when I have to give you an extemporaneous what would you rather. But I am curious if when I put this together, you were like, why this one, not that one? Of the streaming prestige films that have come out in the year of our Lord 2025 that we haven't already talked about.
I don't think anything sprung immediately to mind. I also, maybe this is just me, but I do struggle to attach prestige value to most of what Netflix in particular does at this point in time. The Netflix formula, by and large, is very, very obvious and very, very uninteresting. So intermittently, they do some decent stuff, but they're in a weird spot with their production, like the life cycle of their production, where initially it was, hey, come to Netflix and you can be bold, creative, daring, do all kinds of stuff. And people did a lot of that. Then they went, okay, now everyone has to do what this. So then we have a bunch of those materials, and okay, this was successful, this was successful, this was successful. If I throw all three of these into some large language model and get it to spit out a formula for what people on Netflix want, it gives me bleh. So now anything they do is bleh. And eventually they will get back around to, boy, we should do something interesting and daring with our ability to do, almost anything, instead of producing 18 Stranger Things knockoffs and blowing $500 million on a Duffer Brothers and Russo Brothers projects. Like, no, eventually they'll figure it out, but.
So, why I did this was around this time is when I start Googling and ChatGPTing what are the likely Best Picture nominations so that we can make shows. Having done this, I've told the story a couple of different times. I'll keep it really short tonight. When Alexis challenged us to start doing more Oscar stuff to basically get notoriety in the social media space, what had occurred to me was we don't ever talk about any of these things. We really ought to make a point to. So then we did, and the first time we did it, it was like we had to review 10 shows in a single sitting.
Boy, did we! And a lot of it was like Triangle of Sadness and women talking and a lot of crap.
Yeah, so it was not an easy thing to do. And I said,
well, those of you who don't know, there's a movie called Women Talking. I was not besmirching.
Yeah, that's not me being snide. That's Robert. I've actually referred to that movie as Women Yapping. But
it could have been the title. Well, it might have done better.
Women Babbling. But yeah, I swore never to do that again. That was a rough show. It was a good show, but it was a rough show to get through.
Oh,
The other thing that happened on that show was a very extended conversation about the Banshees of Inisherin, and I went, if we're gonna do this, then I have to start separating these out because we don't have time for this. It's like, we spent a good 45 minutes on the Banshees of Inisherin, and then it was like Tar. It was boring. Next, you know. Thank God we had all. Oh, he froze. Thank God we had already talked about fucking Avatar by that point. So anyway, well, Robert unfreezes. When I went through the list, we had more or less covered most of what I'd seen. And then there was a couple of movies that, like Hamnet, that I knew I was going to go see in theater. So I was like, we'll get to this eventually, or at least I'll have seen it and I can talk about it reasonably intelligently. I did a second pass is what happened. I went back and I said, give me another list of possible contenders. And that's when it gave me some of the streaming movies, these three in particular. So all three of these are on like the second list of what I've seen for Oscar contenders. But if you're wondering, like, why do we bother at all? Because Netflix is a powerhouse now in the Oscar arena. So I had ChatGPT bring up a list. Major awards contenders for Best Picture, Director, Actor, Screenplay previously. And these are all Netflix movies. Roma, 2018. The Irishman, 2019. Marriage Story, 2019. Mank, 2020. The Power of the Dog, 2021. Don't Look Up, 2021. Maestro, 2023. We've reviewed almost all of these.
I think we did review all of them to one extent or another.
We did not do Roma, but yes. The Irishman we did because of St. Patrick's Day week. Marriage Story I reviewed on Triple Feature with Sean. Mank we did when we looked at after the Oscars had already passed. We went back and looked at it.
Yeah, because we did Mank, The Father, and Nomadland, right? The three big winners from that year.
Right. That was the night we got fancy.
Indeed, I wore a suit.
Yeah, you did. The Power of the Dog. Because what better movie to review with Ronnie Adams, good to his mother, West Virginian, living in North Carolina, than the gay cowboy movie? I'm a dick. He had no idea either. He was just like, he had no idea what he was getting himself into. This is why.
It's funnier if he does. It's funnier if he doesn't know. But yeah, that's kind of rude on your part. Like, this brutal cowboy movie about like violent homosexuality. Let's have Ronnie review that.
Yeah. Then I did Barbie, and this is why we don't talk anymore. Speaking of which, Don't Look Up, which we did on Damn You Hollywood with being the Ricardos, and then Maestro, which was part of a triple feature of Oscar movies from that year.
Yeah.
Acting, screenplay, technical nominees, not Best Picture: Mudbound, Da 5 Bloods, Hillbilly Elegy, Tick Tick Boom, Blonde, Naiad. I did Tick Tick Boom. We did Blonde. The rest of these we did not.
We didn't do the other ones.
Yeah.
But
international animated documentary, All Quiet on the Western Front, we did. Pinocchio, we did. We did not do American Factory.
Point being, yeah. Netflix does, in fact, get a fair amount of cachet when it comes to these things, so we should take them at least somewhat seriously.
Right. And again, I learned that I have to break these up over a couple of different shows because, like, we probably could have done a Damn You Hollywood on just Jay Kelly. I have a lot to say about it, but
I mean, we could have, but it would have just been you talking for most of it.
Also that. But, the other side of it is I have the function of triple feature is sometimes to focus on a particular actor or director or a theme or a genre. And sometimes it's because I need to pile a bunch of movies into one show. So, and what I've learned throughout this process of doing triple feature for the last few years, there's always one movie I have nothing to say. And it's like, it's fine. Like, and that year this show was fucking House of Dynamite. All right, Jay Kelly is a 2025 comedy drama directed by Noah Baumbach, written by Baumbach and Emily Mortimer, who stars in the movie. She's from The Newsroom. She's British. The film stars
sucks, by the way.
An ensemble cast includes George Clooney, Adam Sandler, Laura Dern, Billy Crudup. It follows a famous actor who travels through Europe with his team and manager and reflects on his life choices, relationship, and legacy. Had its world premiere at the main competition of the 82nd Venice International Film Festival in August. It was then released in select theaters in November, followed by a global release on Netflix December 5th. The film received positive reviews from critics with praise for Clooney and Sandler's performances. Both Clooney and Sandler received acting nominations at the 83rd Golden Globes for their performances in the film, and they will probably get nominations for the same for the Oscars. Do you want to?
Struggling more with the. I'm fine with them because the Oscars separates Best Actor for drama and comedy. They'll both get the nominations out of the comedy section of that.
Yeah.
I struggle with them being like either of them being nominated for Best Performance of the Year in their respective categories, all things considered.
Do you want to do a plot synopsis for this, or you just want to start talking about it?
And I can do it briefly. It's not much of a plot.
Well, I know how much fun you enjoy with this sort of thing. This is like your moment to shine on any given podcast.
Indeed. So we follow George Clooney playing George Clooney, which actually gets a bit of meta humor within the movie itself. But anyway, George Clooney plays Jay Kelly, a hyper-successful movie star. And he just wraps filming a movie. His agent is Adam Sandler. He's also got people around him. Again, Laura Dern is there. She's his publicist lawyer or something like that.
Publicist.
There's a few other people. He gets done filming this movie and he goes to see his teenage daughter who's just graduated high school. He's like, okay, I got a week between projects. Let's have some quality father-daughter time. And she goes, no.
And she breaks into a rendition of The Cats in the Cradle.
Pretty much. She then says, no, I'm going to a jazz festival in France, and then I'm going to go to this thing in Italy, and I'm going to have a, summer abroad with my friends because I'm an adult, and you're cramping my style, Dad, because no matter who your father is, if you're a teenage girl, your father cramps your style.
And how?
And that makes poor George Clooney a little bit sad, and he thinks about Tomorrowland and how he made that movie.
And Batman and Robin.
And as he's lamenting these things, Billy Crudup shows up and says, hey, we used to be roommates and acting buddies together trying to break in. And he goes, oh yeah, you were the guy that was really, really good at acting from our group, and we were friends. And he goes, well, please come have a drink with me for old time's sake. So they do, and they reminisce. And then his friend goes, you're kind of a son of a bitch.
You stole
my girlfriend. You stole my audition. You got the life I should have had. And George Clooney goes, look, buddy, you were the one who decided it was a good idea to don a blue prosthetic wang to play Dr. Manhattan. I chose better parts. I don't know what to tell you.
Okay, what he actually says is, I can't help that they casted me. They could have casted anybody. You're mad they didn't cast you. I don't know what to tell you about that. Like, I got casted, and from that I built a career. None of these things are a slight against you, you fucking sociopath. At which point Billy Crudup's like, no, I'm going to blame you for all of my problems because it's the year of our Lord 2025, and that is our national pastime.
And the acceptance of responsibility is not a thing we do. So he threatens violence. They get into a very sad old man shoving match. There's punches thrown. It's a thing. George Clooney then decides, all right, I'm going to reconnect with my youngest daughter. It's my last chance, in no small part because Billy Crudup says, yeah, you know what your other kid says about you?
Yeah, we're
the older daughter.
My favorite line of this movie, we're Facebook friends.
That's going to date this thing horribly eventually, but yes.
It's already dated. The only people on Facebook are fucking boomers.
Well, you and me too, but yeah.
Well, I don't know where else to promote this podcast or how to communicate with you people.
It's just, one of these days we'll have to get into like the uses and viability of each individual social media platform, but some other time.
Yeah.
Anyway. So he then packs up his entourage. Get it? Entourage? Because there was a show called Entourage that dealt with almost exactly everything that goes on in this movie. And says, all right, we're going to France. And I was supposed to get this award and a recognition thing from a film festival in Italy. And now I can do that because that's where my daughter's going to be. So I'll go over there and do that. And there's complications that arise. He winds up on the same train as his daughter. He makes good with a bunch of people. His daughter's like, wait, you got here by tracking my spending. You're a bit crazy, Dad. Don't do this. And along the way, Laura Dern's like, you know what? I just traveled a significant portion of the way across the planet for this jackass. I don't want to do this. Adam Sandler's like, man, I got a wife and I got kids. and my home life's falling apart. But and again, see Entourage and or BoJack Horseman if you want a better version of this story. And one by one, people leave George Clooney as he continues reminiscing about how he got that first casting gig, first time he cheated on his first wife, his relationship with his first daughter falling apart, the memories of a sad life lived, and eventually there's no one there with him. And he gives almost all of his tickets to the tribute away because there's a small B plot where another guy who employs Adam Sandler as his publicist,
manager.
his manager, yeah, I can never remember that guy's name, but he's the dude in the Conjuring movies. And he breaks up with Adam Sandler and they both cry. And then he brings his family along for this whole thing because he's actually got a somewhat acceptable work-life balance. And he's got a big family and they're all there. And George Clooney's like, boy, I've got no one. So he wanders through the swamp of sorrow, calls his daughter, stumbles into a pit of sadness, and much like the horse Artex, can't pull himself out, so he just sinks below the morass. Eventually, he runs after Adam Sandler in a taxi after he and Adam Sandler have a blow up. And Adam Sandler's like, you know what? I give everything to you. And George Clooney's like, yeah, and you get 15% of my income, so quit being a pansy. And Sandler's like, you know what? That hurts. I thought we were friends. I'm leaving you. So he runs after him in a cab and he says, I wish I knew how to quit you. Sorry, I mean, he says any number of insert bad romantic lines here. He says, look, you're the only one I really want to be there. They have passionate gay sex, and then they go to this thing.
No, Adam Sandler's line in that, and you're being very flip about it, but he's just like, you're the only one I really want there. And Adam Sandler, in his most Adam Sandler way since Grown Ups, goes, I'm the only one that's left. And George Clooney's like, you see me without clothes on. And Adam Sandler's like, I do. And as a tribute to our friendship and our lasting relationship together, this will be the one last thing I do for you, is I will actually go see my friend receive a fake award that we gave to another guy because you turned this down the first time. And he goes and he does this and he's like, this is it. This is where we part ways. And I will now go home to my family.
So they go and they see the highlight of all the George Clooney movies, and they're actually just clips from George Clooney movies throughout the years. Which you have to be like me to remember most of them. If you don't have my recall,
So this is important. At the beginning of the movie, they're shooting the last scene of this movie, and he delivers a monologue, and then they yell "cut," and that's a wrap. Everybody, the director's like, "We're good, we got it," and George Clooney's like, "I feel like I can give you more. I feel like I can do it again. Can I get another? Can I get another one? Can we go again?" That's a Chekhov's gun, because now at the end of this, and I'll talk about this when I do my craft review, he has a life full of regrets. He feels like he sacrificed his family for fame and fortune, and he made the wrong choice. And now he says, can I get another one? Can we go again? As if to say, can I get a redo on my life? I done fucked up. I'll take it from here. Thanks.
Go ahead.
I love this movie. I'm okay if you don't. I kind of suspected you wouldn't. In the back of my head, I'm like, I can't wait to gush about this movie. Oh, Rob's going to hate this. That happens every time I like something. I'm going to tell you a quick anecdote. I'll try to keep this as quick as I can because it's a little personal. But I cried at the end of this movie, not because of necessarily what happened in the movie, but it triggered something within me because I did make the right decisions. I tried my best to do the work-life balance, and I was in my kid's life. I still am in my kid's life. As we talked about 20 minutes ago, I can't. My kids are just like, please take us to do stuff. Taking my kids to go see Guar in Alabama of all things. I'm taking them to New Orleans.
Wow.
Yeah, like I'm an involved dad, and even my ex-wife would say, not a good husband, but a great father, probably one of the best. So it's not like I have a tremendous amount of regret there. But I was thinking about like how George Clooney presents in this movie, and he has a couple of divorces under his belt because, again, he sacrificed family, he sacrificed everything so that he could be a famous actor. This is what upset me. I really tried hard to be the best husband that I could be on top of being a father, and regardless of what the ex thinks of me, I did my best. and it ended the way that it ended, and that made me sad. Not necessarily because I want to be with her. I should make that point clear. It's not really about her. It's so much. It's like it's really really heartbreaking to try your best at something, to give your all and fail anyway.
Yeah.
And I think that's what hit me. But also, not that I have to worry about this so much, because I am, again, an involved father. And my kids are the most important thing to me. But standing there alone on a dirt road and have everyone walk away from you, have one kid tell you, I have friends, I have other family, I don't need you in my life, good, thanks, lots of luck. And have another one be like, I don't think your opinion is worthwhile. I don't think your fatherly advice is valuable. And I just kind of want to go live my life. No offense. And so, and your friends have left you, your business partners have left you, and you're just standing on a dirt road and like, will somebody please love me and not just what I can provide? That broke my heart. That's my fucking nightmare. That is something I have on occasion lived through to lesser degree, but that element of feeling like you like, as George Clooney did, you give nothing in this world, you are nothing in this world to anyone except what you can provide. That you as a person don't matter, which is the conclusion he came to. And he is desperately trying to hold on to some semblance of humanity by hanging on to Adam Sandler, who is like, I almost did what you did. I have sacrificed everything. Time, like throughout the movie, there's bits where Adam Sandler is talking about like, my daughter's got a tennis thing, and like, her foot's fucking inflamed or something, and there's other stuff going on, and the wife actually says to him, and boy have I heard this before, to a different degree with different wording, I'm single parenting it over here. You're not a single parent. You guys are married. He just is really busy, and his job involves long hours and travel. You're not a single parent. Ask a single parent; they'll tell you.
Yeah.
Or a widow. Anyway, and Adam Sandler sees that he's in a really bad narcissistic Axis 2 type relationship where he gives and gives and gives, and there's a hole in the bucket, and it never stops, and he's about to throw his entire family and everything that he's worked for into this bottomless bucket. And he was like, I've done. This isn't worth it. There's no end to your need. There's no end to your need, George Clooney. I will never stop giving you. It'll never be enough. And I will lose everything. And criticize me for over empathizing with Adam Sandler, who I think is really good in this. I think if he doesn't deserve if he doesn't deserve the win, he at least deserves the nominations. It's some of the best Adam Sandler work I've ever seen. And I don't generally like his comedies outside of a handful. I do think he's a really good dramatic actor. And here, this might be like the best thing he's ever done.
He's better in Uncut Gems than he is here, but your point is still well taken.
I don't think I ever saw Uncut Gems. I do remember the other really serious drama that he was, Punch Drunk Love. That's the one I'm thinking of. I always confuse Punch Drunk Love and Uncut Gems. I never saw Uncut Gems. I saw Punch Drunk Love. Hated Punch Drunk Love. But my point being, of the things I've seen Adam Sandler in, I think this is like the best thing he's done. And I over empathize with his character. So part of why I like Jay Kelly as much as I do, and I will let you criticize this if you feel so inclined, is I over empathize with the characters being played by Adam Sandler and George Clooney, and I think they're playing both of those characters well. My personal attachment to this movie aside, I can see why you wouldn't like it. I can see why a lot of people would be like, what is the point of this? Because if you don't find that deep personal connection to what's happening in the story, you're following an actor kind of bumblefucking his way through Europe, and you're watching these business relationships crumble all around him, as is the relationship with his daughter. And there are better, more dramatic presentations in film of a guy losing everything over the course of 2 hours than Jay Kelly. I just happen to like this one. It's pretty. Italy's pretty. I think I want to move there. Either there or Lutz when my kids are finally out of the house. I have dreams of either moving into Pasco County here in Florida for a very, very specific reason. Um, or moving to Italy. It's just every movie. Like earlier this year, we did a triple feature, and it's called La Dolce Vita, and it's kid buys one of the $1 houses in some abandoned village in Italy, and her dad follows her, and they rebuild the house. And I remember saying about that movie, the best thing about that movie is that it's in Italy. Italy is gorgeous. I've actually been to Rome. I've been to a couple different places many years ago during my first marriage, as a matter of fact. And cinematography is really, really good. The nice landscape shots where they have them in Tuscany is lovely. I think the dialogue is realistic. These feel like you and I talked a little ways back about lived life experience. That is the backbone of this screenplay. Everybody here has lived life experience. They are acting that out in their performances, and it's coming through the dialogue. So like Laura Dern's frustration with George Clooney is palpable. And it's one of the good things about this movie that I think the whole thing rests on is it's not like he's not insane. He's grasping at straws. This is a last-ditch effort to try to gain back some of the humanity he thinks he's lost. And it's one of those heartbreaking things where you're not a bad person, but you've made choices. You now have to live with the consequences of those choices. And it's kind of a Scrooge, at the lonely grave moment where you're like, these are the choices that led you here. There's no going back now. And it's like, I don't want to be buried in a lonely grave. I don't want to go to hell. I don't want to suffer the consequences of the choices I actively made to try to have the best life for me. And, the Ghost of Christmas Future just kind of kicks him in the grave and says, tough shit, pal. Then fucking change. But, the nice thing about A Christmas Carol is that people are willing to forgive him, and not so much George Clooney's character and Jay Kelly. Sometimes the devil just, or death rather, just kicks you in the face, and down you go into the lonely grave. And that's life. I hate to tell people that, but when you make selfish choices, right or wrong, and I'm not saying sacrifice for profession is always the wrong thing, but if you make that choice, you live with the consequences, and not everybody has to love you for it. There's no rule that says, I will love you independent of the choices that you make. That's the wish. That is what people want, is to never suffer the consequences of their actions, but that's not how life works. And I like that the movie speaks to that. And I think it speaks to it well. It's one of my favorite movies of this year. It is in my top 5. Robert?
Okay, so as someone who did not emotionally resonate with the vast majority of this, let me express a few of the pretty serious problems this movie has. One, it's too long. This does not need to be 2+ hours.
No disagreement there.
So that's a problem. It manages to maintain mostly decent narrative momentum. I think the part of the problem is, and this is a Noah Baumbach problem. He's trying too much to not be as satirical. And when I say satire in this case, I don't mean haha satire.
I was going to say, this isn't Don't Look Up.
Yeah, no, look, Baumbach stuff, when I say it's satirical, it's, again, it's not like Jonathan Swift, let's all have a good laugh at my exaggeration satire.
Mm-hmm.
It's more just like really, really biting, observational satire. Like for example, he also directed Marriage Story, which is a real, again, like knife through so many things.
If you think I'm not in the best mental headspace after listening to me talk about Jay Kelly, listen to my review of Marriage Story when the separation was nice and fresh.
Yeah. Once again, a review you did not do with me, and for whatever reason.
It's because it was a part of a triple feature with Sean.
I know, but so point being, Baumbach is like dulling his own incisive sensibilities.
Mm-hmm.
in favor of a little bit more bizarre comedy choices. Now, again, when I say bizarre comedy, this is not like Adam Sandler cartoon comedy. But there's just some comedic beats here that feel like, I hate to say a studio note, but a little bit like a studio note. Like, we don't want this to be so seriously dramatic here. Like, this would be too depressing if you didn't. He's like, that's kind of the point. And the studio's like, yeah, but we're writing the checks. So he goes, fine, levity.
Yeah, but Hamnet's coming out, in a few weeks. We can't have two of the saddest movies ever.
So that's a bit of a problem. And then there's my... I was going to mention this. Like, there actually is a point where this movie loses its narrative momentum. And it's a weird place because we wind up with some weird choices being made, again, structurally. When George Clooney meets his dad, from whom he is estranged, his father played by Stacy Keach.
I know too many people like his father. That I was like, I know that man in a lot of different roles in my life. That was a little too familiar.
Which, again, credit to the, as a broad stroke relation, credit to both Stacy Keach and some of the writing going on there, but we never get, how to phrase this? Clooney paints his father as an angry, bitter alcoholic. And I don't need the man to show up being an angry drunk. I really don't. But when you paint him that way, and the first few interactions between them are the very surface level, stereotypical, we both know there's baggage here, but neither of us is going to talk about it thing.
Mm-hmm.
I do need the baggage to be unpacked at some point, and instead his dad has a heart attack and says, I want to go home.
Well, in defense of that, I don't think the father has the language of expressive feelings to tell George Clooney how he feels about him. George Clooney certainly doesn't have it, and the father is bitter. Like, George Clooney's impression of him, his description of him, I don't think matches the reality of what that character actually was. The character is angry at George Clooney and disappointed. That George Clooney, with all of this largesse and fame and prosperity, didn't do enough for Stacy Keach, who feels like he's owed. That's all subtext. Yeah, that's what I saw.
No, I don't disagree with your interpretation there. I'm just saying, I do need at some point, again, I don't need them to delve into therapy speak. I really don't.
I was like, watch it. I had to sit through Merry Little Xmas, and I haven't gotten past it yet.
No, I understand. I don't need that. I really don't. But I do need some unpacking of the baggage, at least a little bit. And again, instead, we get a giant anticlimax. And I could be okay with the anticlimax being part of the point if instead we didn't immediately dovetail into, this is the moment when George Clooney realizes it's all for naught. And again, that sequence in particular doesn't quite land for me. And especially for it to turn into him hurling insults at Adam Sandler to drive away his last person because his dad decided that I'm an old man and I don't want to die in Italy, which is a weird choice because, if you're going to die somewhere, Tuscany, there are worse places than Tuscany. Like, New Jersey, where Stacy Keach is probably going back to. Or Long Island, which is not even really part of New York. Anyway. I just wanted that reaction. So, point being, that just doesn't quite land the way I think it should or could. And again, maybe that's just me, but that one doesn't quite land. And then again, I think my biggest gripe. This is a big old meta criticism of this kind of movie, specifically about Hollywood. So you're going to have to indulge me just for a minute here. Dear Hollywood, you've been making this movie intermittently for 80 years. For something like 80 years, you have done the so-and-so dedicated everything to the film business or the television business, and look at all the sacrifices that were inherent to that, and look at how miserable they became. I mentioned Entourage, which does this. BoJack Horseman is a big case study in this, over and over again.
Did you listen to Jesse and I talk about Legit, or have you ever seen the show Legit?
No.
Carrie Fisher plays a television producer who at some point demands Jim Jeffries lick her pussy if he wants a job.
Sounds about right. And look, in another year or two, because then enough time will have passed when we do even more on the nose Weinstein references. Right now, they're still just oblique enough for everyone to go, oh no, wait, really? I didn't know we were doing that. But we're going to get closer to that being more the real thing. And we're just going to keep. What bothers me about this is, again, 80 years, 2 generations, give or take, of people that have come up and been chewed up and spit out by your system. And you all are more than willing to wax melodramatic and poetic about, oh, behold the cost, the great cost of great art. Oh, woe is us. Look on the fallen idol of the movie star in despair. At which point I have to look at all of you idiots, all of you mind-numbing, barely sapient bureaucrats and go, you can change this system. This is entirely of your own making. You're the ones creating your own problems. You jump into the batch of wet concrete by yourself, apropos of nothing, and then go, why, oh, why do we still encourage and demand people jump into the batch of wet concrete and then sink into the river? Why would we do that? This is not a good thing. Meanwhile, you're doing it, and you've been doing it, and you're going to continue doing it. So spare me this masturbatory self-congratulation about your acknowledgement of your own bullshit. I don't need it. No one does. That, however, is a critique of almost the entire genre of film that this represents. I just don't think this is an especially good example of it. So, that's where I landed on this. Annoyed by the entire circumstance that led to yet another self-flagellation exercise by successful people about, oh, how terrible it is to be successful, and look what we've sacrificed for it.
Boy, there is no greater way of discerning where you and I are in our lives than this fucking movie.
Mark looking very deeply at the characters, me looking at the system that spawned it and going, you know what?
Yeah. All right. If that's all you got to say about Jake Kelly, let's just move on to Train Dreams.
I don't disagree with most of your general positives about it. So, no, I'm happy to leave that one. There's going to be some nominations for this. I'm mostly okay with it.
Screenplay, best actor in a comedy, best supporting actor in a comedy. That's it.
Probably.
I think it's a pretty movie. Again, Italy is pretty, but I don't think that warrants that gets it to best cinematography. That'll be the next movie.
Yeah, no, that'll definitely be the next one.
So yeah, best screenplay. Excuse me.
Maybe.
I don't think this gets best picture. I don't even think it gets nominated for best picture, and I don't think it gets nominated for best director.
Probably not.
Train Dreams, Choo Choo, is a 2025 American period drama directed by Clint Bentley, who co-wrote the screenplay with Greg Quatter, based on the 2011 novella by Denis Johnson. The film stars Joel Edgerton, Felicity Jones, Nathaniel Arcand, Clifton Collins Jr., John Deal, Paul Schneider, Kerry Condon, William H. Macy with narration from Will Patton. Train Dreams had its world premiere at the 2025 Sundance Film Festival on January 26th of 2025 and was released in select cinemas in the United States November 7th, 2025, before streaming on Netflix November 21st. The film received critical acclaim, with praise going to Bentley's direction and Edgerton's performance. Among its accolades, the film was named one of the top 10 films of 2025 by both the National Board Review and American Film Institute. For his performance, Edgerton was nominated for a Golden Globe. Before you do the plot synopsis, let me say, well, if you watch this and it's got that high praise, how come it's not on your top 10 list, you film snob, you? As I've said before, my list is a combination of, I think, what it has to meet 2 criteria. It's one of the best movies made, but it also, to me, was the most entertaining. This is an exceptionally made movie. not the not it's not more entertaining than any of the movies in my top 10, or it would be there. I suppose.
I don't know. You shared with me your list. If I had your list, this would be on there. It's probably going to find its way into mine when I think about it a little bit more.
That's fine. Like, I'm not, like if like, well, like, name 5 honorable mentions, fine. Then this is in my honorable mentions, along with Mission Impossible and I forgot what was the other one I said. There's like a second one. Anyway, doesn't matter. My point is, yeah, it's great. I can appreciate great cinema without saying, like, is this one I would like? I would watch Jay Kelly again. If someone was like, "Can you watch this with me?" And so I can kind of, you liked it so much, would you watch it again? Yes. Would you watch Train Dreams again? No. I would watch almost any movie on my top 10 list, though, a second time at least. So, with that said,
that's not true, and you know it. You showed me your top 10. I'm not going to spoil what's on it, so I'm not going to challenge you specifically, but I could if I wanted to.
I'm looking at the list again. All of these, if I wouldn't watch any of these again with my girlfriend, but but for somebody who had an attention span, yeah, I would absolutely watch these again.
You would watch Train Dreams a second time over your number 10. If for no other reason than it takes less time out of your life.
Okay, well. Train Dreams, Robert, the plot.
So, Train Dreams does somewhat defy a conventional plot structure because this is a very Terrence Malick adjacent movie. So we follow Joel Edgerton's character, and we're just kind of following his life in installments. He starts as an orphan who is dropped off in the middle of Idaho. He leaves school fairly early because, of course, he does. He takes some various frontier jobs. He finds love with Felicity Jones, becomes a bit of a rail worker and logger. Does that for a while. Sees a poor Oriental gentleman thrown to his death in a gorge for the crime of probably just being Chinese.
I like Chinese. I like Chinese. They only come up to your knees and they're ready to please. All right, keep going.
You want to keep going and actually get us thrown off the platform?
It's Monty Python. It's culture.
Yeah, tell that to John Cleese, who's disavowed half of them by now.
Wonderful.
Just saying, like, remind him that he was part of that sketch from The Life of Brian where all the Jewish elders talk around and go, you can't change from a woman into a man. Ask him about that now.
No, keep going.
But seeing that violence and just kind of the hard nature of life, this, by the way, this movie starts in like the early 1900s, give or take. And it's going to cap off in 1960, I think it was 68, they said, when he died. So it's a very important, actually, time period in both American history and world history. But he does a lot of his time logging, which back then is a lot of work and a lot of danger, more so even than now. And his wife gets pregnant. They've got a little kid. They hatch a plan like, okay, we've got a couple of acres of land. If we start actually farming and maybe, build something a little bit more stable, like a sawmill, then you don't have to go work deep in the woods with William H. Macy and his unreliable dynamite. And all the other horrible dangers that come with this profession. And you won't have to be gone for, 8 months a year between transit and work doing this. So that'll be great. And he's like, yeah, one last long trip through the woods, and then we'll be set to do that. And like all people, one day away from retirement, bad things happen. He comes back to a forest fire, having consumed the house, and his wife and toddler child, like 2 or 3 at this point, missing, probably dead, because they never come back. He gets super depressed about this, like you do. He is sort of roused from his depressive state by a friend. He sort of rebuilds the cabin, tries to start getting on with life, but now he's getting old, and the logging business now there's chainsaws because we've progressed to that point. And it's just not quite the same for him. So he winds up quitting that. He becomes like a proto Uber driver for this place in Idaho. He takes people around to places, and he just never feels like really good about life, full of regret, full of all kinds of things. And then one day, while walking the streets of Spokane, Washington, that he arrived at via train rail, he is privy to John Glenn's Orbit of the Earth, which is being broadcast. And he goes, huh, that's a hell of a thing. He then goes up in a biplane because they're selling biplane rides nearby because the FAA wasn't really a thing at this point. So
right.
And he takes the and something about the combination of being up in the air and seeing, the sum total of his life's wanderings in very short order, some acrobatic maneuvers, he finally starts feeling a bit connected, and that's kind of the feeling that we are left with as we're told, and he died on a November morning in, again, 1968, give or take. And yeah, it's almost impossible to describe the effect of this film just by summing up the plot, because it's, again, this is drawing references to Terrence Malick's work for a reason. This is a very, very meditative,
it's very
atmospheric,
moody.
Moody film.
So I don't have a lot to say about it. It should absolutely win Best Cinematography. It is a beautiful film.
Yeah.
It is moody. It is meditative, as we said. Well acted.
It's the best Joel Edgerton's done in a while.
Yeah, the drama between Edgerton and Felicity Jones is subtle. Get all things considered. I don't feel in a special...
For a Netflix movie where she borders on being a strong, independent woman who don't need no man,
Well, I was going to say, I don't feel the need to attack her for nagginess. I kind of like the first movie. Funny thing about when wives marry husbands, they'd like the husbands to be around, and when they're not, they get pissy.
Yeah.
That being said, for a pissy wife, she handles it pretty well, and I think Felicity Jones actually gives her an air of sympathy.
Mm-hmm.
You and I talked about this years ago when we first named this podcast, where we watched not The Hateful Eight, Magnificent Seven, and we talked about the language of how guys speak to each other. Now, and I want to bring it up here because there's conversation, and that's why I said this one will also probably get nominated for Best Screenplay. There's a way in which men of this era speak to each other that now would not survive scrutiny by the sensitive Gen Zs and betas and alphas that are going to be populating the world over the next few years. But back then, when the world produced very strong men who sometimes did not survive that strength and turned to alcohol, to be fair,
among other things.
Yeah, among other things. But there was a briskness, a coldness, but still there was camaraderie there. There was brotherhood.
There's that great line in this one that there was that one guy who he fell into working very well with, and they didn't say a single word to each other for 8 months.
I envied that. So I like that. So the scenes of the guys all kind of working together and doing stuff. I liked Joel Edgerton has a very subtle, moody delivery. Him being contemplative and meditative in his house and kind of speaking in a mumble and things like that. But it was all good. Like I said, I like the fact that the film exists. I've seen a lot of movies like this one. I'm glad people are still making movies like this, because whenever somebody says, "Oh, it's all crap now," it's not all crap. You just watch crap. You don't look for the good stuff. This is the good stuff. It's part of why I do this podcast, this particular one. So for those of you, crying mamby-pambies who are just there's no good movies, watch Train Dreams. This is an adult feature meant for adults with an attention span. It's a mastercraft in shooting moody, natural, meditative movies.
Oh, for Christ! I watching this movie. I wanted to watch it more once it started because, boy, everything's lit properly.
Yeah, Like it's an extremely well made movie. If personal taste and enjoyment were not a thing, this would be probably in my top 3. It's made that well.
Yeah.
Robert?
As someone who did get a little bit more of an emotional ping off of this one than Jay Kelly, this will probably wind up in my top 10 somewhere. This movie, there's a few things I want to say about it positively that I didn't already. So let me get this out of the way. In weaker hands, this is James Cameron hippie crap. This is anti-industrial. Look at how much nicer things used to be. BS. And it's not. There is a bit of a longing going on for, oh boy, there are things we lost along the way. And as like the country and the world has progressed, there are things that get left behind. Some of it we're happy to see go. Polio. No one wants polio.
Isn't polio back?
Probably, but you know what I mean.
Yes. I get to be the pedantic one.
Yes, you do.
Robert.
Okay, smallpox.
Measles.
Things that should be gone. Things that how do I phrase this? Look, I don't mind people being skeptical, especially of newer chemicals you have to inject into yourself. We've also at this point got such a giant body of evidence about some of these things that shut up. Polio vaccine, we know, not only works, but is safe. Your MMRs are fine. Few of the different hepatitis vaccine, like there's a bunch of the stuff that we've seen done enough at this point. We actually do have the data.
You are delving into religious belief and not the kind you think. Because
I'm well aware of what I'm doing.
Because people are, and I'm going to say this, and then you have to go back to your craft review. And I'm saying this because I want to curb this before it goes too far.
Yeah.
People, based on their faith, are willing to give nonsense a try, but will shy away from science strictly on that same belief. For example, Alexis and I reviewed a show earlier this year called Apple Cider Vinegar, and a large portion of it is dealing with how people sheerly out of faith will try natural remedies to cure cancer to their death. Meanwhile, the actual treatments for cancer are widely available. They're just really painful. Ask me why I know that. And yet, because purely of faith and certainly not a body of evidence, they believe and therefore they try and therefore they suffer. Moving on.
So there's that. But so point being, there are things that, we did conquer and get rid of that we're all happy to see go. There's other stuff that, it had to go. I mean, it inevitably was going to go, but, maybe we do kind of miss it. And maybe there is something to be said for not going backwards, because too many ancillary things are connected to it to ever go back.
Right. But
acknowledging that something was lost. And there's a really great sense of that permeates this movie. It does a really decent job of representing like the passage of time to the point where you get to a certain point and, Joel Edgerton is still living in his cabin out in the woods.
He's hoping if he stays there, the family will return.
Yes, but let me get to my point about it.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, that's what you did. The first time he goes out into the woods and builds a cabin with his wife, that's what everyone did. You bought land, you went out, you built a house. By the time we get nearer the end of the movie, into the 1940s, 50s, when the Forest Service has been instituted, and he's sharing briefly with Carrie Condon for emotional catharsis, he's the weird hermit who lives in the woods. Within his lifetime, the expected trajectory of like what you did went from doing the norm to being the outlier.
Right.
I mean, this is another way to there's another bit that this bit gets circulated whenever people talk about Shawshank Redemption. So let me briefly go on about this real fast because there's a feeling that goes with the following sentiment that is attached to this movie. And it has to do with the character of Brooks. If you've never seen or read Shawshank Redemption, poor Brooks. He's in jail. He's been there forever. He gets paroled. He can't hack it outside. He hangs himself. There's the short story.
Like you do.
Well, there's appropriate context that needs to be said with this, and people have started bringing it up whenever people talk about this. Like, Brooks was not only in there for, 60, 70 years? I forget how long he'd been, at least 50. He went in there before World War One. He went into that penitentiary in a horse-drawn carriage without electricity. While in jail, electricity became more prevalent. The Wright brothers flew. There was a world war. There was a global pandemic, more deadly than either of the two world wars, actually, when you break it down. A second world war, more flight, and NASA being founded and space flight.
Yeah, he comes out in an alien world. I've actually, having worked in correctional mental health for as long as I have, the guys that were in prison for a long time, they were like, you get out of prison and the whole world has changed. Nothing makes sense anymore. The people that you once knew have, in many cases, have moved on. It is harder than you might think to reacclimate to society. You are essentially dropped into the future, because in prison, the world stops. And then enough time passes, and you're dropped into the future utterly unprepared.
Yeah, and that's always been true. It's weirder now because if you took a 50-year time period from, say, 1800 to 1850, what changes? I mean, like worldwide, societally, what changes a whole lot between 1800 and 1850? The answer is not a whole lot.
Right. I've said a couple of times over the past year, because I've actually talked about this with some of my patients. My patients are in their 70s or 80s. Do you realize what they lived through in the 80 years they've been alive?
Yeah.
The amount of change that's taken place. You went from no cars. In 80 years, you went from no cars to flying cars.
That's about right. I mean, in the same, again, kind of in that same vein, it was entirely possible for someone to have been born and hear about the Wright brothers' flight and then watch Neil Armstrong walk on the moon. That's like a 60-year gap. That's it. And of all the 60-year gaps to miss, if you're locked away or whatever, like, that's a rough stretch. There's giant periods of human history where a 50-year time period yielded almost no major technological or societal advancement.
The other thing is, if you should happen to have lived at a time prior to World War II, the United States isn't a superpower. It's powerful, but it's powerful within its own hemisphere.
Yeah. And
so you grow up in a time where the United States is kind of a powerful and rich but isolated place.
Especially pre-World War One, and then immediately after World War One, we tried to return to isolationism. Like, you know what? You guys do your thing over there. We don't care. We got an ocean between us. We got our own problems because we're huge, and you guys deal with yourselves. And then turns out eventually that falls apart.
Yeah. Then we're one of two superpowers. And then Russia, again, if you're cognizant and alive during the early 1900s, Russia's that place where that weird revolt happened.
And then suddenly they've got nukes too.
Yeah, and they're the other world. And now suddenly they're the other world. This back ass where it's fucking, place in far east Europe suddenly has nuclear weapons. And by the way, what's a nuclear weapon? Anyway,
well, you see, it's that thing we dropped on.
Yeah,
it's the most singularly powerful phenomena humanity's ever wielded, and that's kind of my point about this movie. About this, like, it tackles this time period not from a grand sociological perspective, not even from hey, look how far technology is advanced, but just from the the moody, melancholic feel of displacement that this guy goes through, that America goes through over this time period. I mean, there's another like really great line in this where after they've built this railroad bridge across a gorge, it gets mentioned that, years later, he'd take a train to go into Spokane across a bridge that was built of steel and concrete closer to the main line, rendering everything that they just did here obsolete. And it's just, man, it's one of those things that just kind of hits you, So I again, like Mark said, if you're looking for a good movie that's, aimed at adults, this one, pretty much everything about it. And if you are not familiar with the feeling that may or may not come over you, I can't speak to everyone, but
Okay, so he froze again. He's probably going to have to come back out and come back in. So I'm going to take him off screen, and I'm going to talk to you about... Oh, he's back.
I'm back. Sorry about that. So yeah, again, easily recommend this movie.
A House of Dynamite. Oh,
not easily recommended.
Is a 2025 apocalyptic political thriller directed by Catherine Bigelow.
Apocalyptic, my
and written by Noah Oppenheim. The film features an ensemble cast led by Idris Elba, Rebecca Ferguson, Gabriel Basso, Jared Harris, and Tracy Letts. The film shows the perspective and responses of 3 government and military officials of the United States after an unknown adversary launches a single intercontinental ballistic missile at Chicago. A House of Dynamite had its world premiere in the main competition at the 82nd Venice International Film Festival on September 2nd, 2025, where it was nominated for the Golden Lion. It was released in select cinemas in the UK on October 3rd. It was released in the US on October 10th before its global streaming debut on Netflix on October 24th. The film generally received positive reviews. There's a shock. All right.
Much like something from Paul Thomas Anderson, people just saw Catherine Bigelow did it and went, yay, positive.
So what's the story, Morning Glory?
So this is, as Mark mentioned, it's basically 4 nested stories about the singular event. So it begins with the Missile Command picking up a radar hit for an ICBM headed for the United States. And their response, like, okay, are we sure this is actually what it says it is? Because, there's the way to think about this is the same way you should think about when NASA talks about something that has a percentage chance of hitting Earth. It starts small and then it gets bigger, but at some point it goes to 0. The way to think about that is like if you have a big circle, somewhere within that circle is the chance that this object will hit Earth. Okay, shrink the circle. This represents a smaller percentage. Well, it's a larger percentage, right? So we're getting closer. Is the dot still within that circle? Well, yeah, maybe it still is. Okay, so now we've gone from a 10% chance to a 15% chance. Okay, shrink the circle again. How about now? Well, now it's up to 20%. Oh boy, you should be getting a little bit worried. This thing might hit Earth. We shrink the circle again. Now it's not in it, so now it's 0. You're not still at a 25% chance that it's going to hit you. That's the way that works. That it's an expression of a different probability than just 1 out of 5, because that's normally how we think about that. So similar kind of thing here when they say, hey, there might be a missile headed for the United States. Well, okay, there's a bunch of things that could be. So now we have to eliminate other possibilities. Was this just a test launch that was not properly vetted, in which case we don't wish to respond with nuclear force, because boy, would that be silly if North Korea just punched up hey, we're just trying this thing out. Or is this, a bit of space debris that wasn't properly tracked? Or again, there's a bunch of stuff, right?
Yeah. Once you respond, I can't remember what the word is, but comparably to whatever the attack is, and it turns out you're wrong, you weren't actually attacked, there's no oopsie. There's no, I brought you the wrong dish. You send it back to the kitchen. No, you have killed people and destroyed and destroyed something. You
Especially
can't
if we're talking about nuclear weaponry.
Yeah. So you have to be serious. This is the one thing good about this movie, I'll say before we even get started, is it really does highlight the seriousness of what very serious people do. There aren't many serious people, in the everyday world, and our government gets tend to look like a bunch of clowns. It's people who let Somalians fraud the Minnesota government or the federal government or whatever it was.
It's like $20 billion.
Yeah, like oh my God, the government agencies is just everyone's a dope. Except that there's very real smart people, really talented people, really serious people doing very serious jobs, and they can't afford to fuck them up. And that's probably the only strength of this movie. Keep going.
So again, it starts at this missile command where they realize, oh no, this is actually a missile. Boy, it sure is going. So what's the trajectory on this thing? Well, if it gets past this certain point, we know it's actually a missile and not just a test launch, because that's when it can only fly so far on its initial launch. And then if the secondary fuel kicks in, we'll know it's actually on target and actually a missile, and we'll have to deal with it. Oh boy, it sure did, didn't it? So where did this come from? Well, we're not quite sure. Really? We're not sure. We need to sell this to the international market, so we can't say it came from anyone. Otherwise, they'll feel bad.
And they can't make up a country like Darkskinistan.
Yeah. So, okay, let's shoot it down. So we try to shoot it down, and that doesn't work. Well, we can try again. So they try again.
This was the dumbest part of the movie for me. You know what this country has a lot of? SAM missile batteries. You know how many missiles get shot at any target that's headed towards the United States? Fucking everyone, all of them. Like, I was reading about this where the movie wants to make this seem like it's a dogfight interception. It's not how that works. They fire a bunch of missiles at this thing, and make sure it's fucking really dead, like the Wicked Witch of the West. Anyway, keep going.
So the second one doesn't work, and everyone goes, oh boy, that's not good. Then one of the people who works in the White House, we cut to her, and we back up to the beginning of this. And then we get her trained through everything, and we go a little bit further towards the end, where they've informed other high-ranking officials, including Idris Elba as the president. We don't see him yet, but he's informed. Then we cut to Jared Harris as the I think he's the Secretary of Defense or the National Security Advisor, one of those two. And we back up through his day to get to this point. And then we get to the president, and we end on the cliffhanger of, well, we can't stop the missile. It's going for Chicago. Mr. President, what are your orders? And that's where we end. Because God forbid this movie actually say anything.
Kind of reminded me of Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Let me explain.
Okay.
So Ma Rainey's Black Bottom kind of takes place in one place, and it's a lot of people coming in and out of that scene, and it's a lot of hyperkinetic talking. That to me, when you were talking before about like Netflix has a particular type of prestige film, that's kind of what it does really well, because it doesn't want to, it can't afford to theoretically spend $200 million on every single Netflix movie that comes out. It has to have some cheapos. And so what it does really well, especially with the prestige movies for the most part, is giving you kind of a place. That place is a character in this movie, and everyone's going to just exist in that place for a little while. And that's kind of what this is. That's why I compared it to Ma Rainey's Black Bottom.
Okay.
Because, like I said, it mostly takes place in this one space. It's a lot of like hyperkinetic, military and technobabble. There's some interesting emotional moments. Like there's somebody who gets elected to be saved, and she's going to get ushered off to the bunker, and another person's just like in a very human moment, like it made me laugh because I recognize the humanity in it, but it's also like a shitty moment where she's like, she just got here. Why does she get to be saved? Like, the levels of human depravity and shittiness never cease to amaze me. Now, I was called cynical at the age of 16, and nothing has changed, and I get that. Some people have hope, but but I like Ted Lasso. It's the hope that kills you. So I this is where Robert and I bump heads because I'm like the really cynical. Because believe it or not, Robert gets aggravated because things are not as good as they could be. I know they'll never get any better, and therein lies the true difference between the two of us.
This is the general friction between us. Yes.
Yeah, I kind of
the
accept
friction that produces diamonds, Mark. The pressure and friction that produces diamonds.
I accept the fact that this is this is hell, and we all got to just live in it. And you're like, I would like to think heaven is within reach. Fine. I accept that about you. You accept it about me. We move on with life. That being said, so the human moments where somebody's as shitty as I just expect him to be, as shitty as any person living on this planet, I'm like, yeah, that tracks. I absolutely believe that person is without the cognitive fucking, cognitive abilities to go, this is just what has to happen and accept your lot in life and be a little more Buddhist, a little more Eastern European about the whole Eastern philosophical about the whole thing. Nope.
The fact that also that
we have to just be a shitty person about it.
The other thing that kills me about that one is that's actually like in the White House. Like that's not the people in Chicago who are going to get bombed and vaporized.
Yeah.
Like, my man, it's the White House. It's one of the most secure facilities in the country. You can move to a safe location. You're just not going to that safe location. Shut up, you pansy.
So, I'm going to say, like, I was with the movie for the first third of it. When it shifted perspectives and then shifted again to Idris Elba, who was the president, the movie kind of it lost me progressively. By the time I got to Idris Elba, I didn't care anymore. I was like, because the movie won't declaratively say, yes, it's a missile. Yes, it's going to hit Chicago. Yes, it's one of our enemies. This is not a test. And then the movie ends, and you're like, and it ends with them not really answering any questions, and a president not really saying to you what he's going to do about it, if anything at all. And
but Mark, the only message that we come away from is nuclear weapon. Nuclear war is bad, okay? And we should all just disarm the bombs. Because look what might happen. And no, shut up.
Can we talk about that just for a second? Because it might be the only interesting part of this entire review. Everyone's, the left, the far left, the commies, the anarchists, get really, really mad at the countries in this world who have nuclear weapons. The nuclear weapons are what stopped a lot of really bad things from happening over the course of the 20th century.
Especially the back half of it, yeah.
I know that's hard for people to understand. It's like, no, nuclear weapons are bad. No. Nuclear weapons as a deterrent were good. We didn't use them. Not on purpose, at least. Not after Japan.
Once.
Not after Japan, and not on purpose.
Then the freaking Russian, slapdash nuclear power facility had to screw everything up for us.
But once you've introduced that particular bit of technology into the world, you encourage other people to have it too. What the fuck makes you think they wouldn't want it anyway? Do you think? Hang on, because this annoys the piss out of me. Because I'm in kind of an argument with online communists at the moment.
As you should be. They suck.
Yeah, they're terrible people. But they are of the belief that the reason why North Korea and Iran, just to name two examples, are in pursuit of nuclear weapons is because the United States and Israel are big bad bullies, and they have to defend themselves. Except that in neither fucking case have we used them since World War II on purpose. And yet, they are of the belief that just in case we, suddenly lose our minds collectively, this is what's going to happen. Here's the thing. You actually don't need nuclear weapons as a deterrent. You need SAM missile batteries. You need a missile defense system, of which, Europe has a lot of them now, too.
Mostly funded by us, but yeah.
Yeah, that's our big export to Europe was SAM missile batteries.
Yep.
Let us pretend, for just the sake of this conversation and the purposes of discussing this movie, Superman lived here. And Superman, having watched the movie The Quest for Peace, gets the brilliant idea of he's going to unilaterally disarm the world of nuclear weapons. And the United States, being a liberal, panty-waist, hippie-loving, ascendant country, decides this is for the best. Nuclear weapons is anachronistic and archaic and a thing of the past, and we don't want to make the same mistake again. So we won't pursue nuclear weapons. We won't build any more nuclear weapons. Superman got rid of them. You know who still pursues nuclear weapons? Fucking Iran and North Korea.
Yep.
If you have nuclear weapons, you know what it says to the world? We are powerful. We are not to be fucked with. You will work with us on a level playing field, despite the fact that we can't feed our people by and large, and our social structural systems collapse on an ongoing basis. That's my biggest problem with a movie like this, because from a craft perspective, from just a dramatic perspective, it's well done enough.
All right, it's not great. Idris Elba just kind of is there to collect a paycheck. I think the best acting in this whole thing is Jared Harris, believe it or not. But
yeah, my point being is, if you like a nice, wordy, frenetic kind of stage play done as a movie, it works just fine. It's a perfectly good movie. As a commentary on nuclear weapons, this is stupid.
Incredibly.
It does not understand the way the world works. Because, again, what gets you a seat at the big boys table in 2025 in geopolitics is the possession of nuclear weapons. That's why they want them. I don't know if Iran would ever actually use it.
Iran might.
All things considered. Well, here's the problem. If it launched a nuclear missile at fucking Israel, half the countries in the world that had nuclear weapons would all fire them back at Iran. That's kind of the point of having nuclear missiles in that sense. When you don't have a missile defense system, would North Korea use this? Probably not.
It's North Korea, so depending on who's in the chair.
Well, again, no, I do not subscribe to the belief that the leaders of Iran or the leaders of North Korea are idiots. I just don't.
I could go either way on Kim Jong.
And even if they're dumbbells, they're surrounded by people who have to understand how the world works in order to be in the positions that they're in. And everyone's going to tell them the same thing. If you do this, there will be a counter strike, and we're not going to survive it. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the defense systems. I mean, this is why I have a hard time with people on like TikTok and other social media spaces who try to talk about this stuff, because they talk about it like it's an even playing field. It's not. It's almost impossible to attack this country conventionally. It's almost impossible to attack this country with nuclear weapons. It just is. So if you got the bright idea to do so, you'd fail most of the time, which is something this movie doesn't deal with at all. Purposely so. I read the fucking article about it from the people who made the movie, who didn't want to admit it would be nigh on impossible to attack this country.
You see, we're at a point where the genuine danger to not just the United States, but like global stability is actually not as much state on state violence. Like, that still happens. Ongoing right now, as it happens to be, but as a general rule, that's not gonna,
Here's the thing. The people defrauding the U.S. government to create fake daycares are doing more damage than terrorists ever would or could.
Have so far, and have certainly in the last, 20 years.
And if you don't like that, okay, you did great with 9/11. Good job. You not only fundamentally changed the way this country operates, you made us paranoid. You made us turn on each other. Never mind the fact you knocked 2 buildings over by using planes as missiles. Forget about that for a moment. And the amount of people you killed. You effectively made this country a worse place to be because of it. Like, you essentially did something, and our reaction was to turn around and shoot each other after a time.
Well, mostly because there's a non-trivial contingent of people in this country in particular that are suicidal on a really weird level.
So my point being that the conversation around nuclear weapons, for me, is kind of stupid.
Let me.
There are countries that want to be taken seriously, despite the fact they don't have the economic or structural power to be taken seriously. Nuclear weapons is a cheat. So if you got rid of all the nuclear weapons, people would still pursue North Korea, Iran, other countries would still pursue nuclear weapons. It's the only way anyone takes them seriously.
Yeah. Or you could be like Somalia, barely functional, apparently about to be elected president of the UN Security Council.
How many
the UN is
I was gonna say, how many failed states have had somebody elected to this Secretary of the UN?
The UN is an unserious organization at this point. I mean, it took longer to get to the same place as the League of Nations, but we should just admit that that's where it is.
Oh, by far. But anyway, that's really all I
have. Hang on, let me dovetail with you real fast because I want to agree with you and then point something else out.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of the people who say no, we should get rid of them all, are trying to put the genie back. Not only are they trying to put the genie back in the bottle, which you can't. They're trying to then eliminate the knowledge of the lamp. There's a weird thing going on in their heads where if we don't have them, people will forget that they exist or could exist, and then the world will be a better place. It would be better if we hadn't dropped the bomb on Japan, which is a hotly debated topic to this day. That, look, we should all admit it was not good, but was it the best of the bad options? And the answer is kind of yes. And if you want to know how I know that, I'm not some omniscient being. It's because they do this all the time, or they used to, in various college courses when they talk about this stuff. They present groups of students with with all the knowledge that the U.S. government had at the time. They don't say it, they don't phrase it like that. They give it different names or whatnot, but you're in charge of this. Here's your options. And which of these options presented to you is the best one? Or if you have another idea, we'd like to hear it. But, the Japanese just literally spent the entire Pacific campaign fighting to the last man. The casualty rate there is astronomical. If you look at at everything that took place during just taking Okinawa, now we're gonna have to do that again and again and again. And there's just so many variables at play. But anytime you give people the same conditions that Truman dropped the bomb under, everyone drops the bomb. Yeah, it's horrifying, maybe in some respects, but what else were you going to do?
This is why I can't take people like Pendleton and her army of TikTok communists seriously.
They're simps, Mark. You can call them simps.
Because there's nothing about their argument that is serious. It is all trauma-induced flattening of power for their own safety. It is deeply unserious. They cannot acknowledge the psychology of the people that they're defending. I was talking to a lady from Cuba today. I actually graduated her out of therapy today. Occasionally I cure someone. It happens. And she was like, and I was telling her, I was like, there are so many people I engage with stupidly, because I'm a masochist, online that are defending communism. And she was like, have any of them actually lived there? Like, I came from, I've been in this country for years. I lived in Cuba at the time, during the pre-communist era and post-communist era, and then it's the post-communist era that made me come here. It's like she was saying to me, and it tracks with everything else I've ever heard people say. People who left a communist country say they would never have left. That was their home. They were proud to be there. They didn't want to leave. Coming here is hard.
Yep.
In many cases, especially in the case of Cuba, you risk death. Trying to, escape. It's like she was telling me, she was like, most places where you defect or you escape or, just travel illegally, you can walk. Right. Cuba, you have to get on a raft the size of a closet door and try sailing to Florida. She was like, this is not a serious argument here. Do you think any of us wanted this? Do you think any of us, we literally, see, the thing of it is, and this is what she said to me. She was like, the idea that the state's going to take your property, but then everything's going to get redistributed so that everyone has a fair share never happens. We never get to the fair share part. Everything that you're shown, she was telling me, because I lived it, everything that you're shown that says we have functioning hospitals, we have functioning schools, we have this and that, it's lies. Some have it, but it's not as widespread. And then isn't that the whole point? Is the whole country supposed to have it?
And not to get too on our tangent, but the more socialized a system becomes, depending on the size and the population density and a few other variables, like the worse it gets. Like, man, there's some current horror stories coming out of the Canadian healthcare system.
Oh, yeah. I have a lot of, through my second job, I treat a lot of Canadians, and for stuff that, I mean, great, some of our wait lists are not great either, but for them, it's like 6 months to a year sometimes to wait for a lot of stuff, a lot of things. Like you can get, and what's misunderstood about Canadian healthcare is you can get private healthcare, but if you can't afford it, and it's not affordable for many of them, then you're just stuck on the Canadian healthcare, and the Canadian healthcare is a breadline.
Yep. And
anyway,
while
so
you're
go ahead, sorry.
And while you're in line to get your back looked at, they'll have someone walk in the line going, "Have you considered medically assisted suicide instead of treatment?"
So, A House of Dynamite, Robert, your thoughts?
I don't hate the premise. I don't hate the setup. I hate the execution. I hate that this is gutless. I hate that it has nothing to say other than nuclear weapons are bad. Something we've known since before we created them. Like, we knew this was going to be a thing. We knew this was a terribly destructive thing. We all decided it was a thing we were going to do because it could be done. And this is the other thing about nuclear weaponry and nuclear technology, by and large, that people don't get.
I got to say this. The collective psychology of people living through the World War II era was, we would like to not do this anymore. World War I sucked. What's happening now sucks more. We don't want to do this anymore. We need to create enough disincentive to ever do this again. That was it.
Pretty much.
Part of the purpose of creating the atom bomb was to create a big enough weapon for people, sober, smart, educated, sound, sane people to go, let's not do this. And it worked. That's the thing that people don't get. For as many nuclear weapons as America had through the Cold War, through as many nuclear weapons as Russia had through the Cold War, you know what never happened? Nuclear fucking war. You are never going to stop the small wars, the small invasions. Those have been going on for fucking ever.
And continue to go on. Like, Russia's in Ukraine still. I mean, that's still going on.
But from the time World War II ended to now, has there ever been a place on this earth that didn't have war?
Well,
I phrase that more. They used to say the sun never sets on the British Empire. I would like to amend that statement to the sun never sets on war. It hasn't. It probably never will at the rate we're going.
The only thing I'm going to say to somewhat amend that, like, if you want a cause for optimism, believe it or not, if you look at like the rate at which humans die post World War II, it actually drops precipitously. Like,
sure,
we all did seem to get the memo, at least a little bit, that this is not good or sustainable. And to get back to my point, like, the part of the reason that happened is we got to a scientific point where, oh no, it was bad that America developed the nuke. You think we were the only ones trying? You think there was something unique?
Hang on.
Hang on.
Do you know why we got the nuke? Because a bunch of German Jews fucking defected.
Yeah. Because Hitler this is on record. Hitler viewed atomic science as Jew science and didn't trust it.
Well, not only that, but again, I don't know if you've heard of this thing, but there was a point at which the Germans were herding the Jews into camps.
Yeah.
And so the ones with money, the scientists, the engineers, were like, yikes, I don't want to go to a camp. I'm going to go to America. And as it turns out, I was like, hey, could you participate in splitting the atom? Why, I can. We'll come along, Mr. Wiskowitz.
Yeah, but like the notion that the Russians weren't aware of this potential in technology, or that the Germans or any number of places were aware of it, a lot of people knew it was theoretically possible. We would have gotten, point being, someone would have gotten here eventually. There's an entire branch of study that is the evolution of science.
Well, Robert, the fact of the matter is, let's decide that Hitler doesn't blame the Jews for the woes of Germany. Takes another tactic. Sticks with the gypsies and the cripples, and then says, you know what the problem here is? It's the dirty French. Fine. And he's leaving the Jews mostly alone. Germany gets the bomb first.
Possibly. My only gripe with that is that does presuppose that Hitler is more stable than Hitler.
Well, okay. Now we're into so many other we're well away from the topic. House of Dynamite, sir.
Yeah, again, it's an okay setup. Like the first couple of acts, like you said, are fine. But by the time you realize what the gimmick is, I'm like, oh, you're not going to do anything. You're not going to say anything. You're just going to end on a cliffhanger and just be like, don't you see how bad this all is? Like, just shut up. Just shut up. It's pointless. It's an exercise in futility. It's just you're breaking your own arm, patting yourself on the back with what you're trying to say here. And frankly, you're not that good a contortionist, so go away.
I had somebody on TikTok tell me there's no such thing as human nature, and I was like, I don't even know why I try with you people.
That is a profoundly stupid sentiment.
Welcome to my fucking TikTok, sir.
Look, man, you poked that bear, and those people.
Yeah, I know. That's okay.
All right, we still got the sane among us. Still have your back.
I enjoy doing the TikToks. That's why I'll keep doing them. But boy, if it was because I was crazy enough to seek validation from this giant pile of apes, oof, never mind. Well, giant pile of apes is the phrase that pays here on the triple feature on the Rattle Broadcast.
As a reminder, we will not be reviewing Primate.
No, I still have to see it because I love my son.
Hey, you don't get to no. You don't get to complain about that one.
All right. So that's it for this week. Jamie Hollywood will be back on January 5th. We'll be doing the third Rian Johnson Knives Out movie, Wake Up Dead Man. I don't think there are
probably
any
not
other...
good. Apparently, there's a Star Wars reference in it because Rian Johnson isn't butthurt about that at all.
So no other live shows this week. However, we'll be doing our 2025 year in review and 2026 look ahead. The 2026 look ahead is my favorite part of that show. That's where Robert and I will look at the Wikipedia for the 2026 movies and decide what we're going to review.
Yep.
I'm just going to ahead of time. I am not so on fire to make sure we review everything. Like if there's weeks where you're just like, there's nothing here, I don't give a shit, I don't want to do anything, I'm okay with that. We'll just fucking move on. If you want to go every Monday, we'll put stuff in between. But look how well that worked out this year. You mean how many times we preemptively loaded up a triple feature that then I had to move into this coming year on a Thursday because we ended up finding other stuff to review as time went on. So that's all I'm saying is if we don't currently have anything on that week, let's just leave it blank. Something will come along and we'll need to fill it. One of these movies, a third Happy Gilmore. Who the fuck knows? I
am not reviewing a Happy Gilmore movie with you.
You know what I mean.
I do know what you mean.
So that is
when we do that, if I say put it in pencil, that's kind of what I mean.
Yeah. Okay.
Like put it there that there's something, but if it winds up being something different than that, I'm completely okay with it.
Yeah, I would like to leave space for amending the schedule in the next coming year as opposed to do what I did this year because I just don't want to do this as many days as I did it. Yeah. I'm not trying to date a crack adult goth chick or anything like that, and I'm cutting back on the schedule. However, I am getting slightly burnt out. I am getting a little burnt out, and not that I don't want to do this. I actually do very much. I just don't want to do it as much as I was doing it this year, to where I start getting very resentful of this entire process. So this is more of I need to make some internal adjustments which then affect the external. So that's okay.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, so it's not that, like I said, we'll probably go weekly, but like I would rather make room for a show like this one than book everything and drive ourselves crazy, and then I have to pick a second day to do stuff, and I don't want to.
That's fair.
So that's it. Next week, like I said, Jesse and I will be doing a source material, and that's going to be Cobra Commander, Darth Maul, and Shredder in Hell. And then Wake Up Dead Man. And then allegedly my girlfriend's going to hold a fucking podcast. She's going to do a Gilmore Girls podcast with somebody that does her TikTok lives with her. We'll see how that goes. I will not be on it. I told her I will be in the house. That's the best you're going to get out of me. A week from Wednesday, Harry and I will be doing IWR 41 Seasons Beatings Fest. And then a week from Thursday...
I'm surprised you and Harry aren't weekly reviewing the JCW stuff.
And then we're doing a John Hughes focus a week from Thursday. Weird Science, 16 Candles, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That'll be myself, Sean, Kat, and Mick. So, all right.
Boy, you're gonna be in for an earful on that one.
Yeah. All right, go do your plugs while I watch the Rams lose to the Falcons because my life sucks.
What does your life sucking have to do with the Rams and Falcons?
Everything and nothing.
You bet on that, didn't you?
I don't want to talk to you.
You can find me covering mixed martial arts and professional wrestling over at 411mania.com. WWE SmackDown on Fridays, UFC events on Saturdays. There are no UFC events until the 24th of January. I'm going stir crazy every Saturday.
Really?
A little bit, yeah. Like I don't mind a week off, I'm good with. But there's like 6 week stretch.
There's like football and shit to watch.
I don't watch football.
There's a big boxing. Well, not anymore.
Football bores me to tears.
Oh. What about basketball? There's basketball on Saturday nights.
Same kind of thing.
There's hockey.
I should like hockey, but I don't.
I watched World's End over the weekend. Watched MJF get the belt again. That was fun.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, I like MJF.
I don't. He's cliche at this point.
He just reminds me of everybody I went to school with, being from Long Island and all.
That tracks. My issue with MJF is he's a self-parody almost at this point. He's not aware of it.
I don't watch enough wrestling for me to have gotten to that point, so I still am amused by him because I'll tune out for long periods of time and then I'll tune back in, and then MJF will say something like, as he points to Hangman Adam Page, "Hey, Seabiscuit," and I go, "Tee-hee."
If he is very reliable in that, if you watched him 5 years ago and you stopped and then you came back, he's still doing the same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So again, self-parody. Yeah, I haven't watched AEW week to week. Forever. I don't watch AEW weekly. I don't really watch WWE weekly unless I'm being paid to. And SmackDown's going back to 3 hours this Friday.
Oh, you poor bastard.
Thank you for that. Until they fire the Road Dogg, they're not going to get better. He's the head writer for SmackDown, and they're not going to fire him because they're not. So it's just going to suck. It's just going to be bad.
They're locked in with so many fucking deals at this point. Does it really matter?
No, they don't. Look, they don't care. They have enough contractual revenue that it doesn't matter. I get it.
Right.
Same thing with the UFC. They're about to start getting $1 billion a year from Paramount.
Yeah, I might start watching again now because I have Paramount Plus.
They don't care about anything.
My problem with watching it is it has to be on a night that I'm not already watching basketball or football. Now,
Saturday, Mark. It's Saturday night.
Well, again, Saturdays. Well, college football is just about over.
No one cares about college football.
I watch college football on Saturdays.
You only do it because you started betting on it. You don't actually care.
Don't tell me what I do and don't do and be right about it. No, I've genuinely enjoyed watching college football. Like the more, as I get older, dude, I find myself enjoying sports more and more. It's really funny, actually.
Look, my philosophy on that is I don't I barely care about the professional level of football.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to watch the circus version of football.
So the only thing I'm going to add to this is as long as there's NBA on Saturday nights, I'll probably continue to watch that. But at some point, the NBA is going to end for the season, and then I really won't have anything to watch on Saturday night. So I'll probably that snort of derision was at the Falcons. Guy like fucking did a touchback and dropped the ball. But then I might conceivably watch the UFC, but also like that. Then I can start watching boxing again. Dude, I haven't other than the Jake Paul fiasco. I haven't watched much boxing in the last little bit because Saturday nights I'm either busy being actually social or I'm watching basketball or football. So like
I think on the boxing side of things, Inoue and Picasso was pretty good. It was a couple of days ago.
I heard. There's actually no really good boxing until like the end of January. From what I was looking at the schedule today, and
all of combat sports are kind of like punting from the end. Well, there's Ryzen coming out New Year's Eve because there's always one of the Japanese MMA promotions that does that. But like, the UFC doesn't get rolling again until January 24th.
Mm-hmm.
But then they're pretty much every week till the end of time.
Yeah, it's hard. Sometimes, like I said, I'm home on a Saturday night, and like Erica's doing TikTok lives, and it's easier for me to watch stuff. And then other times, I end up getting caught up in something. So it's hard to say. But I will probably this year, because I don't have to pay for it. Extra, I mean, pay-per-views. I will probably tune into more UFC just in time for it to be terrible.
Yeah. So also in the UFC vein, I will be writing up my 2025 year-end awards column for 411 Mania. So be on the lookout for that if you care. That's my pick for fighter with the Ian McCall Memorial Worst Luck Award. It's going to Tom Aspinall this year. Just I'll spoil that one. Poor guy. Worst fight. Best knockout, best submission, breakthrough fighter of the year, fight of the year, and fight of the year. I mean, I keep mine fairly simple.
Alrighty. Robert and I will do another one of these, like I said, in a couple of weeks, I think.
Right after we do our year in review, we'll tackle 3 other major contenders for the awards.
Timing is everything. Yeah. January 12th is another Oscar triple feature. These are first ballots. These are Begonia, Marty Supreme, and Hamnet. The last thing I'll say, and then we really got to close out here. My TikTok feed full of Marty Supreme. Like after Superman, a lot of my TikTok feed was people reacting to the Superman movie and giving their takes on it. And I haven't gotten that for a while. And now my entire, apropos of nothing I didn't do anything with Marty Supreme just yet. But all of a sudden, my entire TikTok feed is men and women reacting to that movie. There are some interesting takes on it, let me tell you. When you see it, I'll be curious to see what your opinion is.
I imagine the amount of anti-Semitism is on the rise.
Well, TikTok does hate the Jews.
It really does. It's kind of bizarre.
Oh, look, the anti-Zionists and the communists found a place to safely spew their stupid opinions. Wonderful.
That and Blue Sky.
Are you serious?
You never scrolled through Blue? Well, Blue Sky kind of sucks to begin with. But
no, oh, that's right. Blue Sky's where all the liberals went when Elon Musk bought Twitter. Got it. All right, folks. Enough about old men complain about the youth. For Robert Winfrey, I'm Mark Radulich. Be well, be safe, and behave.